Imparato is a Franco-American artist. She's a meditation facilitator and founder of Painting for Life, a process-oriented approach to intuitive painting and inner exploration. For over 2 decades, she has facilitated this ongoing weekly workshop that integrates mindfulness, painting, and community building. In 2025, Noelle introduced a 6-week online course, Do Your Own Red Book. It was inspired by Carl Jung's Red Book. It weaves together image making, active imagination, and writing into an alchemical practice of healing and self-discovery. Her work is grounded in lived experience, including her own journey through rupture, transformation, and the discovery of the image as a guiding force. Noelle holds a PhD in mythology with an emphasis in depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute. I wonder whether she knew our Dana White. She has presented and exhibited her work in the United States and Europe. The latest art exhibit she curated, featuring paintings from her workshop participants, will tour at the Smith Center for Healing and the Arts in Washington, D.C. this June. She is also currently developing a 2-volume book project, Painted Memoir and Painter Memoir, the guidebook, exploring the dialogue between image and word as a path of individuation and self-transformation. Through her teaching, Noelle invites participants to trust the images that arise from within and discover their own inner direction through creative practice. And on a personal note, I've known Noelle for, I was trying to figure out, at least 25 years. She's a soul sister. The relationship we have is that we don't always see each other for years, but when we do and we talk, this conversation just continues. And she did not include, but I remember very well when she was working on her PhD, she made a film about runaway children, the children who are, you've seen them on Hollywood Boulevard, and the ones who've left their homes behind because they don't feel they can be there any longer, and yet they're not old enough to really take care of themselves. And so that was when I met her. She was involved in that discipline of art. She's multi-talented, and my son also had a chance to experience working with her and with the way she uses art to uncover our essence. So I'm really happy to have Noelle here today and share her with you. Noelle.
Oh, thank you, Ruth, for this most gracious presentation. And again, thank you, Mary Grace, for inviting me to this wonderful circle. I am so moved by everything I have seen and heard in the first hour, so I feel really honored to be here today. And today I'm going to share a path that has really changed and deeply transformed my life, a path that merges together image, word, and the relational field. So it's a journey through creativity, but also a journey of healing through shadow work and of discovering the guidance that comes from within. And I think the most important part of it is learning to trust that guidance that comes from within. And so let me tell you a little bit about my own spiritual journey. It began rather early. On my 15th birthday, my whole family sort of gathered into the living room, and we were 9 siblings, so that was a little crowded, and we had a big television set for the first time in our life. And so in those days, you had one channel, one program. So that night, it was a documentary on ashram that featured, among many others, the Indian guru called Sri Aurobindo. And for whatever reason, from that night, what really stuck in my mind was the message from Aurobindo that says, the destiny of man is to become divine. And that really planted a seed in me. And then they also featured the famous Indian saint Anandamayi Ma, and she came on the screen with such beauty and nobility. It really sort of touched me. And I had this kind of powerful experience that from up on the screen, Ma was looking straight at me as if coming from an invisible world beyond. And my heart opened. I even shed a tear in the dark, where nobody could see me. And she exuded such luminous love and grace and joy that for the first time in my life, I found myself embraced by a mother's love, which you might assume I was kind of lacking. So Ma, for me, sort of was seen as the true embodiment of that divine love that Aurobindo was talking about. So this early experience sort of opened something in me, a longing for truth, a longing for true love, a longing for the sacred. And right there and then I decided, well, my career, what I'm going to do with my life is going to be using creativity to awaken people, as this film had done for me. But easier said than done. Life took me through many twists and turns before I eventually found myself in Hollywood, where I worked as a film editor and filmmaker for about 20 years. So from the outside, it looked like somewhat of a success, but inside, I really felt disconnected, even shattered, and something was missing. I was trying to answer the call I had heard at age 15, and now I was finding myself pretty much caught up in mainstream television. But that's when fate came to my rescue. Somehow, by pure chance, I've encountered intuitive painting at the SLN Institute in Big Sur, California. And the third day of that retreat, I had a big opening. I came with a lot of anger against my mother, and as I was painting, the whole thing transformed into a state of grace. I even felt like warm silk dribbling down my spine. And I had that huge insight that underneath that anger, there was love. And love had always been there. So this was sort of a major turning point in my life. I went back home. I sort of kept painting, and very quickly I decided this is just too good of a technique to keep it for myself. So I started sharing it with others. And this brings me to the topic of today, 3 doorways into the sacred. So now, before I go into this, maybe somebody wants to share something from your life that resonates with what I just shared. Not really? Okay, so I'm just going to continue. 3 doorway into the sacred, which is image, word, and the relational field. And to really do that, I'm going to use some images that represent those 3 doorways. So the first one, image, Carl Jung, as you heard, I have a doctorate in depth psychology and mythology, so I'm very much in Carl Jung's school, you might say. So Carl Jung understands that the psyche naturally speaks in image way before it speaks in concept. And so what I discovered is that when we paint spontaneously, without trying to control the result, we can meet those inner images directly before words, before explanation, before the rational mind steps in. And that's why in my workshop, I sort of use the mantra, the product is none of your business. And that usually opens up people's heart, and courage to really show up with whatever comes up directly from the unconscious. So now I'm going to share an image of one painting that sort of represents what I'm talking about. Let me see here if I can do the share. Yeah. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this image is called Samsara. And when I painted this, I was not really fully aware of what I was painting per se. I could see the heaviness, the dejection, the sense of being bound. And it was only much later that I fully understood that the power dynamic the image depicted was how my bond to my mother, here the figure in blue, was tied to my bond to my husband, the one in red. And I was, thinking of myself as an independent and liberated woman. I had traveled a lot. I had been on my own for quite a bit. But surprisingly enough, the image was revealing something much more complex, mainly that I still didn't know myself apart from my dependence on others. So this showed me that the painting was not there to illustrate something I already knew. It was communicating something I didn't know, but needed to know. So in other words, the painting was not an illustration, it was communication. So over the years, I continued to do this kind of a painting, working with my shadow, healing my wounds, and learning to listen to the wisdom that the images carry. And later on, when I began writing my own journey through the healing power of art, I started a book called Painted Memoir. I realized something quite surprising. Without really knowing it, I had created my own version of the Red Book, Carl Jung's Red Book. So that discovery became the foundation of the work I'm now sharing with others, with both, which I'm doing with both my ongoing weekly workshop called Painting for Life, and then more recently, the Do Your Own Red Book course. So now I'm going to stop sharing here and continue with the second doorway, which would be word. But again, before I go into that, anybody would like to share an experience perhaps they had with their own image making that was kind of unveiling for them, something that they did not know before? No? Nobody wants. We can share later when I'm finished presenting if you prefer. That might be another way to do it. But so the second,
Noelle,
yeah,
we have a Patricia who wants to
okay,
share.
okay, Patricia.
No, I wanted to comment on your drawing. It was really amazing. So many meanings one can find as a witness from outside of you. Do you mind showing the image, please?
Showing it again? Okay, hold
Do you
on.
mind? So I imagine the blue was your husband and the red your mom?
No, the opposite.
Oh, the opposite? Oh, okay. um, yeah, I felt some kind of oppression that made yourself shut your mouth up. It's your own hand on your mouth, and your husband reaching for your heart, and how the tension in this drawing, how somehow from your navel, from the chakra of your navel, came the truth. That's what I read in your image. It's incredibly rich. I
Hmm.
guess, and I really would like to take a workshop. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for appreciating the power of the images. Yeah.
I think Christine wanted to respond.
Christine?
Well, Noelle, I mean, the stories might be different, but the power of the image, I mean, I just so resonate with what you're sharing. It's so powerful, and the transformative, power of creativity and art. So I could go on and on, but yes, I can relate to everything you're saying, even though I may not be like raising my hand or speaking up. I am here with you, and it's just so beautiful. Thank you. It's so powerful.
Oh, thank you, Christine. Okay, okay. Well,
All
then
right.
we're going to continue here with a second doorway called basically the world. And so let me share another painting here that will illustrate what I'm talking about. Touching my pain. Okay, so this is called Touching My Pain. And after an image emerges, sometimes language, can begin to meet it. And along with active imagination that Carl Jung sort of developed with his Red Book, we usually dialogue with our painting, and sometimes it's actually life can also meet you there. But the important thing is to listen to the painting, because once the image has come up and some of it is unconscious, then with the conscious mind, we can research, listen, dialogue, and get a lot more information, as I discovered when I was writing my book. So the image come first, but then the word come after as a recognition. And then when I painted this one, I thought I was the one with the blue veil holding my sister in her suffering. But then when I saw the image and I showed it to her, she blurted out, "Oh, how come you are crying so much, you who has everything?" And in that moment, I kind of recognized that I was not just the one who is holding pain. I also was the one who is suffering. So sometimes an image reveals something that we have felt for years but have never fully named. And when the right words arrive, something begins to soften and to heal. So that's sort of what I wanted to say about this painting. Again, does anybody want to share something related to that one?
Yes, Noelle, that image reminds me of the compassionate mother. She looks like Mother Mary with the blue on, but also would represent Avalokitesvara, Green Tara, Kuan Yin, and that compassionate feminine that is holding the suffering of mankind.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful, beautifully said. Yeah. Yeah, I will actually bring out Kuan Yin at the end. I have done a painting about that. Okay. All
So
right. So,
I have a question about when you are looking at this white canvas, do you totally clear your mind? How do you get started on uh, finding that image that needs to be expressed?
yes, definitely. That's a good question because I always approach the canvas or enter the studio in a meditative state of mind as best as I can access the higher state. And when I do the teaching, I always do also guide a little meditation before people paint. Yeah, the presencing, the being fully present in our body, in our emotions, in our heart. That's the core of the process. Yeah.
I can relate to all of that, yes, in my own process. So to be that clear channel. And I know when my presence isn't there, it also shows up. Yes, thank you. So
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you,
No,
Christine.
Noel, I wanted to add something to that. I think many people don't know that they are artists. They have never been called an artist, but when they have this opportunity, they reveal talents and depth that is startling. And I saw that in my son because in our family, my daughter was considered the artist. And so he never wanted to paint next to her or near her because everybody always said, oh, she's amazing. And I convinced him to take your course. And I saved all his paintings because they're remarkable. And I think that many people have that capacity. And that's why I think the healing aspect of this is not just that you're healing pain, but that you're also seeing that you're an artist.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Everybody is an artist, potentially, willing to do it or not. But a lot of the time, we have been told when we were in school, "Oh, you're not good, so just try to do something else." And that we just interiorize that. And I have so many people coming to me saying, "Oh, I've always wanted to paint. I have even a whole set of painting in my basement, but I haven't touched it in 10 years." That's the kind. And then with the group, it helps to have the group support where we share. So when they start painting the first day, maybe they are a little bit shy, but very quickly they open up and they just do whatever is on their heart. And that turns out to be beautiful. Yes, absolutely.
And I
Okay.
think that's and I think that's because of what you bring and holding that space and providing that for people. You know, that's so helpful for people to have that.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that opportunity to be in a space where they're so supported like that and feel that freedom. So, oh my, I just get goosebumps.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you, Christine. Okay, let's move on because I have lots of more things to do. Um, the next one I wanted to share is Psyche and her sisters. So this illustrates more the relational field. So sometimes, people around us help us see what we cannot see ourselves, not always in a gentle way, not always in a comfortable way. But so this is kind of a reflection of the Greek myth of Psyche and Eros. it helped me see how in my own life, my sister's criticism pushed me to recognize the blind love I was living in with my husband, much as Psyche's sisters help her awaken from enchantment in order to begin her true journey. So relationships can inflict wounds, but relationships can also reveal. And that's sort of why, like Christine mentioned before, having a circle where we all share what's on our heart, just like you from the mastery circle, you all have shared, and how that opens up each other's heart by listening to someone else's story. Sometimes people come to the workshop and maybe they woke up and they are not in the greatest mood and they don't know what they are going to do. But then hearing other people sharing, then that wake them up, and that will allow them to find in them what needs to be expressed. So often that revelation and that expression is the beginning of transformation. So that's the important part here. It helps us in our transformative process. Okay, so now, anybody else want to add something there? No. So I have worked with these 3 doorways for years with my Painting for Life workshop, and more fully merging the 3 together with the Do Your Own Red Book. And of course, that was kind of the course at least becomes a lot more inspired by the Red Book, and especially what Carl Jung called active imagination, where we enter into a dialogue with images arising from the unconscious. And that's sort of a different approach from working with dreams, because dreams, you are completely in the unconscious. Here with painting, you are sort of meeting both the unconscious and the conscious. And I think that's why Jung was talking about not really working with dream per se, or not only with dream, but also with what he did, by sort of going into a semi-dream state before going to bed, and then from there encountering those kind of archetypal figure, or his, guiding figure and all that kind of a thing. That was not done in dreams. That was done in a semi-dream state. And of course, it's not something we can do as a workshop, but I figure that the painting activity, the creative activity, allow us sort of naturally to go into this kind of semi-dream state, or more often we call flow. So the creative flow allow us to tap into that unconscious, bring it into the image, and then you can dialogue and listen to the image, and this way you get more insight and more meaning. So that's how I see that through this inner work, we learn to source guidance from within. We come to know ourselves more deeply and to embrace more of who we truly are. We become more whole, and this is what actually Carl Jung called individuation. So by facing our own shadow and integrating what has been unseen or rejected, we become less likely to project darkness outward. We begin to transform pain into wisdom, and often become a steadier presence for others in difficult time. And so this is, to me, what is sacred work. So if you want, I can show a few examples of painting that will be dealing not so much with the darkness, but more with the light. So here is one. A thousand Buddha. This is called a thousand Buddha. So it emerged at the end of a 2-week retreat that my husband and I, we were leading for 6 teenagers in my family home in France, because I sort of spent 10 years back in France at the beginning of this century. So the image came swiftly and spontaneously, but I was sort of inspired by a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that says, "One Buddha is not enough. We need many Buddhas." And so the painting just came out spontaneously, making a whole number of faces, and I recognized them as our young pupils being little Buddhas in the making. And so this kind of shows you that we are not just always going into darkness, but also into light. And so the next one that I wanted to share, the pillar of light. So this one is a little bit more complex and came later. It's a portrait of a woman whose inner centers, her inner chakras, have awakened and aligned with a greater field of divine love. So she's given many eyes to see things as they are, and elephant ears to listen deeply, and many arms to serve what is needed. Now, the energy rises through her, flows outward, and then returns again, making her a living conduit between heaven and earth, between pure awareness and ordinary life. So this is not perfection, it is alignment. It is becoming a pillar of light for others. Okay. Anybody wants to say something regarding this one? No? All right, then the last one. Kuan Yin. Now with Kuan Yin, I departed from my usual habit, which is to approach the painting without knowing at all what's going to be coming up, although you are full already of some emotions or maybe some memories. So it's not like you are a blank slate, but you don't want to figure out ahead of time what you are going to do. But here with Kuan Yin, who is, as you know, the goddess of compassion, she speaks of our ability to remain in the presence of suffering. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to enter the studio with that kind of a image in mind, but accessing the highest state of meditative consciousness that I could access at that moment. And I was kind of what I would say, aspiring for the painting to arise from that deeper place, which in Buddhism, we call that no self or true self. So I was letting the image of Kuan Yin arise from the deepest meditative state I could access. And the painting of Kuan Yin, the activity of painting Kuan Yin was inviting me to let go of my identification with the ego self and dare to imagine myself as her. So that was kind of a spontaneous idea that I went into. And then later on, much later on, as I was doing the research for the book, I discovered that I had actually unknowingly tapped into a Vajrayana technique called the mind's self-illuminating awareness at work. So the monks actually create this image in their mind, not just a two-dimensional image, but a three-dimensional image that's dynamic, colorful, active, and of course, coming with opening of the heart where you feel like you are totally submerged into divine love, you might say. So that's actually a technique that the monks are being trained for, which I had no idea at all. And I would like to do a little bit more of that, but somehow it requires, you know, to have a little more time to really go into the deepest meditation state of mind as possible. So the aim is to project the image of a Buddha figure in our mind and then to totally focus on the feeling of being that Buddha. Then painting becomes an exercise in connecting with our true nature, and we arise as the divinity which opens the heart to divine love. So again, this is not to become, you know, kind of into a delusion about being a Buddha, but more into identifying or losing our identification with the ego self and accessing the no self, the true self. So mainly the big learning from all this painting work for me was that the deeper we heal our shadow work, the more naturally love begins to move through us. And that sort of pretty much says what I wanted to say with my presentation.
Noelle, you have about 9 more minutes, and we do have Sarah who would like to ask you something or discuss something with you.
Yeah, please, Sarah.
Thank you for your presentation. Your images are incredible. I am wondering, what is the medium that you're using? Is it oil on
Oh, no,
oil?
no, certainly not oil, because oil is too complicated and too difficult to work with and takes too much time. This is the most common painting that you can get, the one they use in school, you know, children for even elementary school. It's tempera paint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that what the medium that you use and the type of paper or canvas or whatever you're painting on, all of that is making a psychological statement about you. So I wonder if you have any insights into that in relation to your paintings.
Well, honestly, the choice of the painting was what was used when I learned it at SLN Institute. And the main reason, I believe, is that A, it's the cheapest paint there is around. B, is the easiest paint to to handle, as I said, children have no problem, and B, you can pre-mix all the colors and they are liquid already. So for a workshop, let's say, you can display all the colors in the middle on a table. They are all ready to go, and you can do as many as you want. I often have like 3 dozens of colors ready to go, and I give people a nice calligraphy brush so that you have a sensible line, trait. You don't have just a straight line like you'd get with a felt pen, let's say, or a Crayola. You get thin and deep, so it gives more character to the painting and also more flow. And it covers the paper very easily and relatively quickly. So in 1 hour, you can cover a poster size paper. And again, I choose paper because it's cheap and you can have a relatively good size format, so you are not in control. When you have a tiny paper, you kind of tend to control the composition and all that stuff. When you have a big paper, like sometimes I put four poster board together, like tape in the back. And you stay very close to your canvas. You put your nose into the canvas, then you lose track of composition, and that helps you to not go into control, because the main difficulty with this painting, there is no rule, anybody can do what they want. There is no artistic, aesthetic concern, but one major difficulty is letting go of control. And so the paint and the paper and the brush are all sort of in the aim of allowing you to be free and not worry that, oh my God, I'm going to ruin an expensive canvas or expensive paints or anything like that. You can be free, and if you don't like your painting, just burn it or do whatever you want with it. What counts is more the activity of painting and what you are gaining from that activity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mary Grace?
I am just blown away by your presentation, really. I'm one of those people who I'm not an artist. I don't want to draw. I'm very intimidated by it. And yet, with how you shared and how how you expressed what you're doing, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to sign up for your workshop. I never thought I would say that. It's so inspiring. I feel like it touched my soul, your images. It got me excited to touch those deep parts in myself. This was just extraordinary, really. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you would come back again and share with us, and I'm happy to share information about your workshops with the group. This was just extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Oh, Marie-Grace, thank you. Thank you so much for being so touched. And I am touched by that too. Yeah. I mean, when I discovered this approach to painting, it was through a French woman who actually learned it from Arnaud Stern. And if you can Google it, it will give you a lot of that lineage. It's after World War II. Arnaud Stern was working with children in a hospital, and he was supposed to help them to recuperate from the war and all from their trauma. And he realized that these children, they were not able to talk about their wounding and the trauma from the war, and God knows what had happened in those 4 years of in France, during World War II. But then when he offered them to paint, they just went, ooh, no problem, they just kind of let it out. And he invented a studio where there was no window. so that people would not be looking at the exterior world. They were completely into their inner world.
Wow. It's just extraordinary. This has been wonderful for me. Very personally meaningful.
We have Tim and Nick who want to share. So if you can make your sharing somewhat brief, that would be wonderful.
Oh, yes, this was really wonderful, Noelle. A couple of observations. One on your feminine image with all the hands going down, connecting between basically the divine and the earth. That in Buddhism is Avalokitesvara, who is the god of compassion, goddess of compassion. The other thing was when you talked about wanting to kind of embody Kuan Yin. Yes, in Vajrayana, they do exactly that with Green Tara, and they have her outside, and she comes and settles through the head into the heart and resides there, and you feel the qualities. And then from there, you extend out to help the suffering in what's going on. So you did that intuitively, which was already a practice in Vajrayana Buddhism. The last thing I wanted to ask you was what I know Jung was wrestling with the cultural image of God, one of them in the Red Book, and the kind of the death or the change of the Christian God into one that's more internal and so forth. Could you speak about that for a moment? Maybe your own experience with that?
Mm. Well, I was raised myself in a Catholic religion. I was raised in France in a little village, all white and all Catholic. So there was no no doubt about what you were supposed to believe. And I was also raised in a boarding school from age 9 to 18. And that boarding school was a semi-cloistered convent, nuns. So I was very much steeped into that God who sits out there on a cloud. And you are the sinful person, you should be kneeling down and looking up at Christ on the cross. But then when I saw that documentary about Sri Aurobindo saying, oh no, the destiny of man is to become divine. For whatever reason, that kind of really touched me, and it really kind of made me feel like, yeah, I'm not to reject Christianity because I think there is a whole lot to be grateful for it. We have our culture, 2,000 years of Christianity, so it's not nothing. But I love the idea that we are getting away from the separation between us and God, and then seeing that God is within us, within everything. That's the definition of God. God is everything. So it's there for all of us to sort of get that sense that we are connected with the essence of the universe, and we can find it in ourselves. We can hopefully find it in others. And I love what Diane said earlier in the previous hour, where we are to be in love. So I think for me that's also very much the same message. I got it from Ram Dass. Love everybody.
Nick, can you make it brief? Because Levita, I also see your hand up. So if we can make things brief, we can get done on time. Yeah.
Thank you, Noel. I'll be brief. I see much imagery here from one's personal past and the cultural past. Have you experienced accessing imagery from the field of the future? Things that have never been seen before.
Not really, I have to admit, and I would love to work with you on that one. As I say, it's not something so easily to do in a workshop, and lately I have been very focused on doing the teaching and the writing, but not so much on developing my own painting. So I'm really looking for anyone who could support me into moving forward, into going back to the studio and perhaps developing more what you are talking about.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nick.
Ovita?
Oh, okay, thank you. I just have two simple questions. What was the first name of the man? His last name is Stern. I couldn't hear properly his.
Arnaud, A-R-N-O, Arnaud Stern.
Thank you. And the three images. I heard number one is image. What were the other two?
Word.
What?
Word, like
World.
speaking, writing, word, W-O-R-D.
Thank you.
And the last
Word.
one,
Okay. Your
yeah,
accent is beautiful, but my ears aren't hearing it correctly.
yeah, my accent, French, I still have
And
it.
the third one?
Is the relational field.
What?
The relational field.
Relational field.
Yes.
Thank
like,
you.
Communication.
Thank you. That's it. Thank
Yeah.
you, Lisa.
So, Noelle, I want to say I got so much out of this presentation because I too am a fine artist, but I usually do realism and I'm really good at it, but I have been torn. I really want to go more intuitive. And so I hope you come back to visit us and share your process because I would love to learn it. I would love to learn how to do it. And we all appreciate you showing up and being here with us today. So thank you very, very much. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Grace, who has business.
So please, please come back to us. I'm going to send you the speaker form again. And
Workshop.
and oh, you know what? Let me stop the recording. I'm sorry.
Yeah.